Dragon Riders, Kaze no Kaeru, by Night Dragon Zero. Night Slice's perspective. It didn't take too long for Riptide and Ivysaur to catch up with us. I was in absolutely no mood for talking, so I left the three of them to their own conversation. I wasn't even listening either. I sat down and kept playing the scene over and over in my head. If I had my true body, I could have gotten to her in time. I wouldn't have had to stop and explain myself to the others. I was abruptly slapped across the cheek and looked up in surprise to see Riptide standing over me. Ow! What the f was that for? To get you to your senses, he replied calmly. Sitting here and pouting over what could have been won't help Chris now. Get back to the present first, and then we can work it out. He's a bit harsh on that. Ivysaur reached out a vine and handed me my drop sunglasses. But he's right. Jolteon nodded and awaited my go. Everyone was looking up to me now, and I couldn't afford to let them down. Unfortunately, I was quite lost myself. Yeah, you're right, guys. Thanks. I just needed to think, I said, trying to sound confident. I ran my hand across the sand, drawing some patterns on the beach. Wait a minute! The beach! It's near the cave! Euphoria! I sprang to my feet. That was the only option I could think of. We have to find her! Come on! No one argued with me as I led them down to the beach. It took a while to get my bearings, but I recognized the rock formation which I'd previously seen nearby. Beneath was an underwater channel that led into the hidden cave. Soon we emerged into the cavern and immediately started calling out her name. Euphoria! Show yourself! I am here, my lord. The ghostly Ninetales materialized. I have something to discuss about our deal, I growled, walking over to her. And while we're at it, how about telling me about what you did to Chris, too? I cut in. I would have strangled her if I could have physically touched the ghost. My lord, please. Enough with your excuses already! I shouted angrily. Calm down! Ivysaur wrapped his vines around my arms. Chris's problems needn't be her fault, Riptide said. I stopped trying to get my emotions in place. Sorry, I muttered. No, Euphoria said softly, staring at the ground. It's my fault. All heads turned towards her. Let me explain, she continued. Do you remember during the battle at Silph Company, you and the girl stepped on a teleporter together? To be more precise, a slightly malfunctioned one? Yeah, I nodded. Both of you felt the electric shocks too, I assume. Well, the teleporter did not only function as one, but also as a somewhat DNA combiner, although a temporary one, and the shocks were physical symptoms of that. What the hell? I cursed under my breath. When you first wanted me to change you into a human, I sensed this odd charge in your body and probed your memories for the reason. So, I already had the DNA in my body? Yes, I sensed it and was almost too convenient. Although the temporary exchange of traits was beginning to fade away, I changed that. Your Scyther genes were stronger, but I accelerated the development of the few human ones which my powers would let them take over. Alas, I didn't consider the alterations in the flow of the karma. I could only think of trying to please you, my lord. That's where we come to Chris, right? I asked. Your friend. She was different, Euphoria acknowledged. Night Slice, we only found out later, but Chris is really part Scyther in a way, Jolteon told me. What? I gasped. To be more precise, your birth was part of an experiment to enable an embryo to be fertilized and survive outside the body, Riptide explained. When you, the first of their experiments to survive, finally hatched, they had what they needed. Chris's mother wasn't able to conceive, so they took what modified genes from you that had enabled you to survive the process, put them into the mix, and I suppose you can guess what happened after that. We can explain everything else to you later. I just stood there, utterly stunned by the revelation. Haven't you noticed that you and Chris have the same birth date, 18th of January, just that it's 5 years apart? Jolteon asked. Chris said that it was probably their way of celebrating their success, Ivysaur added in. Then, that practically makes her my sister. I couldn't help but say aloud. All this time, I'd felt like it was that way. I'd wanted it to be that way. And now that I had it, it was something else entirely. I also had to deal with the consequences. That and more, Euphoria nodded. Chris already had the Scyther genes lying dormant within her. Added to the DNA combiner and my doing, her transformation was inevitable, yet beyond my control. I unbalanced forces even beyond my knowledge. Ancient magic and modern science were never meant to mix, but now they have. Chaos, I muttered. But now she's been taken by Team Rocket, and I'm sure Alagard knows that I'm human. You have to undo this, or at least change me back to my true self." Euphoria was silent for so long that I already knew her answer. "I can do neither." She was in tears. "Never before have I seen humans and Pokemon bond as strongly. I want to help you find your sister too, but my powers are fading. Soon I will no longer have any grip on the mortal realm. I'm sorry, my lord. This was all a result of my own overconfidence." "Don't be, Euphoria. It was my doing too," I spoke up. "It's time I stopped running and stood to face my world. I have to abide for my own actions as well." "My lord, I understand now why you've chosen as you have. Your actions prove the vision you seek for the future, not to destroy by conquest, but to unite." Euphoria. "Neither your goal nor your journey will be easy, but let me give you this." I caught a small white crystal attached to a string. It was a beautiful pendant, modeled in the shape of a Ninetales head. "This is the last of my powers, a guide to help you seek out not only the forbidden skills, but also the rest of my peers, the Knights of Kaze." Her voice was growing more distant now. "Watch for its glow." We gasped as her image began to fade away. "One of the others will definitely be able to restore your true form, but be warned, they may not be very negotiable. They will likely want to test you. Seek out for the Union Cave in Johto first." "Thank you, Euphoria." I held out a hand to touch her shimmering image. "Rest now. You've waited a long time for it." "Be well, my friends, until we meet again." With that, she vanished completely. For a while, everyone was silent. "So, are we really going then?" Ivysaur asked. "Yes," I nodded firmly. "Jade and Firestorm will be all right, but I have my own quest now. So let me ask you all, will you come with me?" "Definitely!" Jolteon snapped. "Don't be stupid, why not?" Ivysaur asked. "Of course! Did you ever doubt us?" Riptide added in. "One more thing. Ivysaur, Jolteon, I want you to pick names for yourselves." I smiled. This would be quite a show. "For a fellow Pokemon, I just don't like using your species name. I don't feel right about it." "Really?" Jolteon asked, jumping up excitedly. "Then I want to be Luminar." "Hey, I wanted that one," Ivysaur protested. "Alright then, I'll be Ashura." "When did you all get into RPGs?" I muttered, a little disappointed that I hadn't gotten a full-scale debate. "Well, ready, team?" My friends gave an affirmative response. "Then let's go." I turned around and put on my sunglasses. I have to find my sister. I begun to walk, making it look like a very dramatic exit, until the part where I tripped and fell face down into the water. Fuck! Jade's perspective. I soon decided that parading around with all our Pokemon out was an unnecessary way to attract unwanted attention, and recalled everyone except for Firestorm and Mirage, who I was riding. The two fire types had the privilege of having their own private conversation, due to the fact that I wasn't too proficient in understanding Pokemon language. The Ponyta hadn't seen much action yet, but something she constantly complained about, but I was sure that was soon to change. We were riding down the road when I suddenly heard the melody. We stopped and listened for a while. Up ahead, a musician sat with his Vaporeon under the shade of a tree, playing an odd-looking flute. He was a pale-skinned man in his early 20s. His shoulder-length hair was silver with blue streaks and seemed to flap in the breeze in accordance with his tune. He was dressed completely in white, too, except for a silver-colored cloak with a hood over his white suit. The flute, too, seemed to be a seashell combined with a hollow stick. And his song, it was beautiful. Very soothing and strangely familiar, too, like I'd heard it somewhere before. "Hello, stranger." He looked up from his flute. "Anything I can help you with?" I started, realizing I'd been so transfixed by the melody that I'd been staring at him. "Oh, nothing. It's just that you play such a wonderful song." I returned his smile as best I could. "Ah, your comments are much appreciated," he replied. "My name is Aguil, and this is Serac." The Vaporeon looked up as the blue-eyed man offered his hand. "I'm Jade," I said, climbing off my Ponyta to shake hands. "And that's Firestorm and Mirage." I just barely let go of his hand when my knees buckled over. "Jade, are you all right?" Aguil asked, catching me before I hit the ground. "Yeah, just a little under the weather right now. So perhaps if you could direct me to a nearby clinic, that would be really helpful." "Certainly, it's not—" A growl from Firestorm cut his sentence short. The Charizard dropped the equipment he was carrying and begun to glance around for whatever it was he'd heard. "Storm, what is it?" I asked. Firestorm finally pointed to a nearby bush and growled. "Darn, spotted!" a familiar male voice cursed. "Well, since what's done is done," a female voice followed that. "Let them prepare for trouble!" Ah, shit, why these two clowns? And make it double. To protect, Firestorm sent a flaming breast straight into the bush. Immediately, the two green-haired rocket agents sprang up, screaming, running around in circles and trying to douse the flames of their white uniforms. The Charizard simply couldn't control himself. "Woohoo! I messed up their motto again!" he cheered happily, doing a little dance and ending with a V for victory pose with his claws. "Aaron and Scarlet!" I put on my most intimidating tone. "What do you two screw-ups want now?" "You see, we missed the transport ship," Aaron began. Scarlet kicked him in the knee. "Oh, it doesn't matter," she yelled. "We got demoted after you messed us up at Mount Moon, and we're going to make sure you pay for that." "Oh, gee, I'm sorry," I replied sarcastically. "So, cash or check?" That made them even madder. We'll show you, wisecracker!" The pair pulled out their Pokeballs. "Ha, throw all you want," I taunted, tossing Firestorm my vest. "I could beat you without Pokemon at all. Come on, let's rock!" "Jade, what the hell are you doing?" Firestorm whispered. "Hey, they're mine. Don't interfere," I growled, annoyed. Aaron's Golbat and Ghastly materialized, followed by Scarlet's Nidorino. "Nidorino, horn attack!" Scarlet ordered. With a roar, the poison Pokemon lowered its horn and charged. "Ha, is that all?" I stood my ground, grinning. "Jade!" Firestorm yelled. It was either too weak or too far away to do anything. Not like it mattered anyway. As the horn came at me, I caught it firmly with both hands and pushed back. I heard everybody gasp as Nidorino's upper body was lifted up. Nidorino's eyes went wide. "What? Impossible!" Aaron gasped. "Oh, this?" Placing one hand around the Pokemon's neck, I lifted it up and swung it round a few times and flung it into its companions, sending all down in a large heap. And now for the trash. I turned towards the rockets, cracking my knuckles. The startled agents were reaching for their weapons, but I didn't give them time for that. I charged, punching Scarlet in the face and sending a back thrust into Aaron's stomach. Grabbing Scarlet by the hair before she hit the ground, I swung her into Aaron. Both cried out in pain and shock as they fell. A purple fog shrouded the area, and I realized it was Ghastly. Bad news, because physical attacks wouldn't harm the gaseous Pokemon. The other Pokemon were recovering as well. "Mirage! Storm! Hit Ghastly with some flames!" I ordered. "Now!" I felt the flames rush past me as I approached my opponents at a frightening pace. Next thing I knew, I was caught up in a wild adrenaline rush, throwing punches and kicks at an insane rate. My enemies were simply too stunned to strike back. "No way!" Scarlet muttered, rubbing a sore chin. Aaron was just staring, mouth open with his jaws practically hitting the floor. Satisfied, I somersaulted backwards. "Storm, how about doing the honors?" Alright," the Charizard caught himself. "Mega Quake!" Storing the Earth's energy in his fists, Firestorm unleashed one of his sacred skills, sending a huge fissure towards the fallen Team Rocket's group. The huge explosion then resulted and sent them flying off into the distance. "Ace, guys," I commended. It was then that I realized what I had done. Beaten up a group of Team Rocket agents and Pokemon with my bare hands, with techniques I couldn't possibly know, let alone use properly. And considering my not-so-excellent physical condition, it was theoretically impossible. "What's happening to me?" I muttered, dropping to my knees. "I'm not this strong or agile, and I've never been this violent before."